Every time I go to this prison to visit with these inmates, I'm blown away by something. It's simply this. How is it that people can live in mansions and be completely bound, while other people can live inside of prisons and be completely free? I visit a prison once a week and I meet men inside of that prison that live free as a person. But I also know people who have seemingly the perfect job and the perfect body and the perfect life and house and car, and they're well known, they're have a lot of money, everything seems to be great, except they're bound in their life. They're bound inside of their own existence. Yet inside of this prison, I meet men that are so free. As I drove there the other day, I was asking myself, why is it they are so free? How come these men, it's not everyone in the prison, but there's men inside of this prison that have signed up for this program to prepare for what they're going to do when they get out of there. They've decided they want to live their life for what it's really meant to be. And they're living with a sense of freedom. And I wonder what causes this. And I think there's two reasons why. Why some people can live in a mansion and be bound, while some people live in a prison yet are free. Here's what I think. These men inside of the prison, they cannot hide their story and they cannot hide their prison. But those of us who live seemingly regular lives, we might spend our entire life hiding our story and hiding our prison. See, these men who were in prison at one point, they stood trial and they had to sit in a chair. And in that room were there some friends and relatives and people that they hurt, and a judge and lawyers and members of the community and law enforcement. And their story was laid out for everyone to hear. People were making sure all the details of what they did came out. A judge or a jury decided what judgment they deserved, and all they could do is sit there and listen as it happened. Before they went into the prison system, at some point they were stripped naked. Physically, they had to strip naked in front of strangers. And I just wonder, what would that be like? And I also wonder this. I think about myself and how my goal, much of my life, was making sure that I hid my story and making sure I hid my prison. My prison wasn't these physical bars, they were metaphorical bars of how I thought about me and my life. For me, weight and food was a major hindrance to the life I was made for. But it wasn't the weight that I carried, it was the weight that I carried. It wasn't really the food that I ate, it's how I thought about the food that I ate. I was living my life as a prisoner, but I had a big disadvantage. I was capable of hiding my prison, and that made the prison worse. These men who have been put behind bars, they can't hide it. Everyone sees it. Everyone can look out the window and look at the barbed wire on the fences. Everyone's wearing orange, and on the back it says inmate. Nobody can hide the reality of their life, and because of that, they're capable of finding a real and complete freedom in how they think about themselves. But as long as we live our life trying to hide our story, what we're really doing is blocking out our own freedom. The threat for people maybe like you and me is that we project to people what we are. We protect our image at the expense of the life we were really made for. That's the man that I was. That's why I spent 4 years writing a book, was I had to write the book. Because when I became a free man, I look back at my whole life and I was like, oh my goodness, I was living to protect my image. I wasn't thinking about people. I was just wondering what they thought about me and how I looked. When I walked into the room, I wasn't thinking about what I could experience. I was wondering what it would be like when people saw me and how I looked with the weight that I carried. Listen, I'm still a man who has extra weight, but the extra weight is on my body, it's not on my mind. The problem was not the weight that I carried on my body, it was the weight on my mind that caused the weight on my body. Like an inmate said in the prison just the other day, I talked about freedom. He said, freedom is a mindset, and he knows it very well. Why? Because this man can't hide his story and he can't hide his prison. The threat to you and I is that we can seemingly hide our story and we think we can hide our prison. What I found in my life, that as long as I hid my story and hid my prison, my story was on the decline and the prison was getting more fortified. What I found is that the longer I hid my prison, the people in my life were paying a higher price for the prison I lived in. But when I stopped hiding my story, I stopped hiding my prison. And that led me to freedom. And freedom changed everything. I realized that I could stop living to protect my image and instead give my gift. I could stop hiding as a person what's wrong with me and instead give what is good that's inside of me. So how come people can live in a mansion yet be bound? And how can some people live in a prison yet be so free? The difference is this. The person in a prison, they can't hide their story and they can't hide their prison. The threat to those of us who live in mansions and living what seems to be perfect lives is we can be threatened to spend our entire life just hiding our story, dressing up our prison so no one sees it. And we do that at the expense of our freedom. My friend, it wasn't until about age 47, maybe 48, that I found freedom as a person. I want to say to you, it's not too late for your freedom. It's not too late. The people in your life are waiting for you to simply be honest with your story, be honest about your prison, and walk out in freedom. It'll change your life and it'll change the lives of those around you. If my book will help you, it's One Step to Freedom. You can get it wherever. I didn't write this book because I wanted to be an author. I wrote this book because I had to write this book. Because when I left my prison cell, I looked around and I was like, wow, there's prison cells everywhere. And I also looked around and I thought to myself, everyone can be free and we must have freedom. It's not too late for you, my friend. You can stop hiding your story. You can stop dressing up your prison. And instead, you can have freedom.